Hello, everybody, and good day wherever you are. Gloria Coppola here for those of you that don't know me, and Powerful Potential and Purpose Publishing is my company with my partner, and we are getting ready to launch another best-selling book, Path of Awakening, A Healing Journey. But today, I've got a special guest for you. That's right. I love to bring our authors on, have them share a little bit of their insights about what they're writing about or why they wrote it or how it helped them heal in their process. And so in a moment, I'm going to bring on my special guest. But I want to let you know a little bit because a lot of times people have been asking me, what is it I do and who do I do it for? I work with heart-centered entrepreneurs and leaders and anyone that has a message to impact the world in a positive way. We want to help you get your message out to people because especially in times of challenges, people are personal challenges, world challenges, people are looking for inspiration and hope. I've actually got the proof right here. That's why this line is across. We got the proof the other day, and the proofreader was in a funk that morning. And the beautiful thing is, once she read these stories, including our special guest today, she said to me, Gloria, it took me right out of my funk. It uplifted me. It gave me new perspective. And that's what we're going to talk about today is some perspective things. And it inspired her. And that's what we want to do. So if you have a message for the world, then get in touch with me. In the meantime, I want to bring on my special guest today. She is one of our authors. Welcome, Lisa.
Hey, thanks, Gloria.
This is Lisa Hahnlen, and she lives in Pennsylvania, and she is one of our authors in our book, Path of Awakening. And Lisa's got a very interesting way that she found her healing journey, and she's going to talk to you about it today. So, Lisa, first tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So actually, I am a West Coast native. I'm from Washington State, and all my family, the rest of my family still lives out there. And I was raised in a family that looked really good. And as I grew up, I just adapted to whatever was coming my way. And I don't think it was until I was a young adult, after I got married and had a child, that I started to feel these rumblings on the inside, and noticed that things weren't quite right, that things felt really hard, and that I was working really hard to be the best I could be. And it just seemed to cost me a lot. I just couldn't stop working at being the best. And so that was what landed me in a therapist chair. And I got lucky. The first person I tried out, it was a great fit for me. And we really started unwrapping what had happened in my childhood and what kind of led me to these beliefs I had that I needed to be the perfect mom or the perfect wife or, be a good woman. So
Lisa, I think a lot of people can relate to that. I know several actually in our book have similar stories, and I know you haven't seen them yet, but there's always a common thread I find when we collaborate on these books too. And, I know, just like you, once we go into our adult life, like you said, and you get married or have kids, these you call them gifts or presents aren't always what they appear to be. And we begin to see things from new perspective. We begin to understand maybe why we're not feeling good enough or why we had so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect. I mean, I know I was raised, by a dad that nothing was good enough. It always had to be better. Even if you were getting an A on every test, it had to be better.
Yeah. And I think for myself, my pressure really came from inside of me. Like I felt that I needed to do that to get whatever positive attention I was hoping for. Yeah. So I think that my undoing, my really looking into myself showed me what had been invisible to me. And so when I was able to use what are called experiential or action methods to really get in touch with my feelings, the whole world just, a whole new world opened up to me. And it wasn't always comfortable, to be honest. When you get in touch with your feelings, there's a lot of them. And the nice thing was that the positive feelings that I had or was trying to elicit, they got bigger and better too. So it's really feeling, I know in my story, I talk about like this rubber band expansion of emotions that I was able to have. And as I've continued, my healing journey, I was able to step into a process which was really new for me, which was using art as a healing modality. And broadly, it's called expressive arts. The style that I learned was intuitive painting. And again, this fits with my perfection story. Growing up, there were 3 other siblings, and they were all incredibly artistic. And I always compared myself to them and never really felt like I was much of an artist. And so using art as a way to express and explore what was going on really got me out of that box of having my art look a certain way, so that I could just use it as a way to basically express what was going on. And the second part is to not have to have it have meaning. So moving through, the paint on the paper, or, whatever canvas you're using, that it doesn't really matter what it looks like. It also doesn't really matter what it means. There's this part of us that we keep shut down so much, when we're in the world and working and we have a job and we have roles and we have duties. That part of us just takes over, and we spend so much time from that place that we aren't really able to tap into. That's why we shut down our emotions, and we don't really process all the stuff that's going on for us all the time. There's not this quiet space. And that expressive arts for me has really allowed that quiet space, allowed me to not have to have a reason, a reason to do art, but also that there's not really, at the end of doing a piece, it's not like this means this, and this means that, and this means this, because that's the kind of also that analyzing part of us, which is pretty strong for me. I can let go of that part too.
Yeah. So Lisa, you use the word art a lot, and a lot of people get intimidated by that word. I'm not an artist. I can't do art. What I do doesn't look, like what everybody else does. But you called it an expressive process. So I would like for you to explain to people, because not everybody in the sense feel talented to go and create a beautiful piece of artwork that they think is beautiful. Okay. Yeah. And perfectionist. And I know, because I do art, and I know when I went from the perfectionist world into more of just free flowing creativity. So when we were children, a lot of us did things with finger paints. Okay. And we didn't really do form and structure. Is that similar to what your process brings people into?
I think, just to be clear, there are a lot of different forms of expressive art. And the one that I learned under Chris Seidel, who is based out of the San Francisco Bay Area, creativejuicesart.com is her website. If anyone's interested, I went through her teacher training program over a year ago. And it's really about, I really learned the difference between product, which is how something looks, and what, in my mind, I have this idea about what I want my art piece to look like when I'm done. That's product-oriented art. Nothing wrong with that. That's a very valid form of engaging in art. But there's a lot of hangups that come with that in terms of the critical nature that some of us have. If it doesn't look a certain way, the critic can kind of come along and tell us all sorts of things about how we aren't good enough, we aren't doing it right. All these rules can come with that kind of art. And some people, work with that and still arrive at something that works for them. This form of using expressive arts is more about the process. So being present as your paintbrush or your pen or marker, whatever you're using, as that is touching the canvas, what are you feeling led to do? So dropping the rules and what it looks like, what color are you feeling led to grab? So you look over at your paint bin, you look over at your markers, and all of a sudden you're like, red, I feel like red. So you grab that and you just start coloring or painting with it, and you keep doing that, and you move your hand in whatever way you want. Maybe a form comes out, and honestly, it's probably not going to look just like if you felt like you wanted to draw a horse. It's not going to be the most amazing horse in the world. You're just getting out that symbol because there's a part of you that wants to express it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just slow down a little bit
Sure.
because I want our audience also, when you guys jump on, to one, say hello, and to also ask questions. You know, maybe you have questions for Lisa to explain these creative juices and this form of expression. Maybe you already do it and you want to share how it has helped you. So Lisa, in your story, which is, what's the title again?
Childhood gifts, or
Childhood,
gifts. Yeah.
something like that, I think, right?
Yeah.
So you relate to your belief systems without going into the story, because I want to take people now from this point to how you got involved in this creative expression. You briefly touched upon at the beginning that you had certain things that came up for you as an adult, and you relate to them as gifts. What does that mean?
Well, I know the first time I sat in the therapist chair, I was aware that something wasn't quite right, but I wasn't sure what it was. So I knew that, you know, my mom and dad had stuff passed on to them, and I had received what I was jokingly, or, you know, tongue in cheek, calling gifts. Because I knew that there were things that had been passed on to me that I wasn't quite sure what they were.
So when I was reading your story, when I was working with you on the writing and all, and there was a lot of different things that you brought up. And I know there's going to be a lot of readers that can relate to a lot of the different topics and feelings you brought up. I'm sure you went through a lot and you didn't give up. You got to this point. What kept you going? Was it the art? Was it other things? Like, you had a lot of challenges. So what kept you going?
Well, I would say that I continued to feel moments of having freedom. So feeling stuck and maybe small and powerless was really uncomfortable. When I couldn't see what was going on, I just felt trapped and challenged. But when I would have a breakthrough or have a new way of seeing things, I could just tap into this other possibility, a different way of living life that felt free, that felt easeful, that was just, yeah, that really was the gift, right? It just felt really good.
So you shared with me earlier that art provided you a voice, and you know, obviously on the canvas, it also gave you a voice this way, to how you speak differently.
I believe that I had already started to get my voice through using action methods with the therapy, with getting my emotions out and speaking what I was feeling and, you know, what my experience was. I felt like I had already gotten in touch with that part, but the voice part of art for me was really about those parts that got that were still tucked away, that still didn't get much of a chance to talk. So, you know, like, for example, in our culture, we have a lot of taboos around things like sex, or things that we think are gross, or so things that we would never think of painting. Sometimes tapping into those things that our culture doesn't really accept, we can give a voice to those parts, because that's a fuller part of who we are, instead of just keeping different parts kind of shut down and saying, oh, you don't get to talk. When you really open up more and more in the expressive arts, you allow more parts of you to have a voice.
And do you find by doing that more messages get shown to you, new perspective gets shown to you, ideas? What happens for you? Because you probably start out your art in a certain mindset, right? What happens over the evolution of it for you personally?
There is permission. You give yourself permission to go places that you wouldn't normally go. And for me, that's the beauty of facilitation. So when I did my training, it was in a group of women. And so there was so much power in knowing that other people are going to these places that they wouldn't normally go either. And as people are brave and show their bravery, it's really contagious. And by being facilitated ourselves by Chris and Tim, who were the teacher trainers, they really helped us tap into places that we wouldn't normally go. And by doing that, there's this growing, I don't know if it's a growing sense of freedom or if it's remembering that we always have been free, but by living in the culture that we live in, there's all these rules that we've unconsciously agreed to that keep those parts tucked away.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are you, with so much going on right now in this world, how is your art helping you process some of the different perspectives or challenges or emotions?
Well, two parts. One is that I have normally been offering my art just in my studio or in the local community that I'm in, but I have shifted to offering free online workshops. They're free at this time. Because opening to a community of people who really want to have a space to just kind of land and process and just have that free opportunity to create. It's really interesting how a lot of people arrive at the workshop, with all of these feelings, feeling anxious or sad or worried. And by the time we're done, because it's just free play with their whatever materials they happen to have at home, at the end they feel grounded, they feel peaceful, they have come to a sense of who they are on the inside that they've lost because they're busy doing all this stuff and because of following what's going on in the world. There's just so much that's shifting. So coming back and landing in our body, which is part of the practice. Before I start art, I do something to get into my body, and then express from that place. And I know for myself, I'm still, there are people who've been painting their whole entire life. I have not. And so I feel like I offer this to people who don't consider themselves artists, and that they can have the same, if not more, powerful experience because they don't have all the rules. That can be the challenge if you're an artist. You have a lot of technique rules that you kind of have to, or what it looks like really matters. No, there's a lot of practice that you have to go through where someone who considers themselves a non-artist, they don't have quite as many roadblocks.
I agree. I was doing artwork when I was younger, got stifled a little bit in there. Later on in life, I actually went and took some art lessons when I lived in Hawaii. And I was one of those people that wanted it to look perfect. And my instructor kept trying to tell me, you're done. And then I go home and do another level of it. So fast forward now, my daughter has her first son, and I created all these perfect real life paintings. And she says, Mom, I want you to do some art for his room with the animal theme and stuff. She says, but I don't want them to look real. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't want them to look real, right? She wanted them whimsical and childlike. And of course, I was using oils at the time, and they take longer to dry than acrylics. So I had to get into the acrylics, the feel of that. And I started to do one of the animals, and she says, Mom, I told you I didn't want it to look realistic. It was so challenging to undo the training that I had gotten. But once I did, oh my God, it opened up a whole new world, right? So I started producing all these paintings real quick. So then I decided to do one for my other grandson and granddaughter, and you're going to love this. So keeping in mind now, I was also training my grandchildren and working with my granddaughter on how to draw and how to paint. And now all of a sudden I'm getting whimsical. So I decide to create this baseball field with all the characters of like all the different things that kids would be into. So there was Cookie Monster in the outfield of the baseball field, eating his cookies all over the floor. There was Dash, stealing second base. There was Nemo, there was all these people part of this thing. And I did it whimsical. I even went out of the lines a little bit in some of the bit. So I bring it to their house, right? And my granddaughter opens the door, and I'm all excited about these two paintings I have for them. And she takes that one, which was going to be for her brother, and she's examining it like I would normally examine her art. like my father examined my art, the things passed on that you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
And she looks at me and she says, well, you did okay, but you went outside of the lines.
Oh, wow.
She had no idea how challenging it was to go outside of the lines. And I would imagine that you've come across people that experience that when they get into this expressive art.
Well, and even for those of us who don't really consider ourselves artists, we still tend to cling to what something looks like or what we want something to look like. And so as soon as we get to a point where either we feel like our art isn't making sense, like we're following our intuition, that's the other piece that I hadn't mentioned, is that, following whatever we feel drawn to is following our intuition. That's usually kind of the softer voice, not the do this way, but do this way, in a very open way where we can be led then to get the next color, to do the next shape. In watching what some people have done, some people feel led to paint pink circles, and that's their whole painting. It's pink circles because they're enjoying, how their hand feels while they move it. The sound of the paint on the paper. It can be whatever sensations. It's not so much about how it looks, it's about how it feels on a sensory level, and I think on an emotional level too. So people do run into, though, as soon as those rules start coming in, and they almost always they do at some level, and we call that our inner critic. It can also be resistance to continuing to listen to that softer voice. And most of us have a lot more practice listening to that voice that says, oh no, that's not quite right, or a meaner voice that says that's ugly, or why are you doing it that way?
Well, we're so quick to judge. We
Yes.
we respond quickly to everything pretty much until we've learned how to process things from, another place, okay? And not just, oh, I'm going to react to it as being ugly and I'm going to criticize and all, because that is a big part for a lot of us. Now, I want to know, why do you want to help people through this medium?
I think that it can really let down our guard when we're willing to step into a place, and the experience really invites that inner critic to come up, because it almost inevitably it does. Sometimes it's really loud and insistent, and sometimes it's quieter, but something about the way our mind works will come up during the process. And it's really a practice of how we want to engage with that part of ourselves, because we live with that part, 24/7, and having a chance to see how it works and realize that we have a choice in how we interact with it is really what the practice is. I mean, that's another really significant part of the practice, is learning how to engage with that part of us that says we should do it this way. We must, we have to. And again, that just gives us a chance. The way I like to say it is it's a meditation with a paintbrush.
There you go.
And it gives us a chance to show up differently in the world, in our everyday life. The practice of doing intuitive painting, of doing expressive arts, can really change our inner landscape, give us a lot more freedom, and then we can carry that out into the world, which makes us, frankly, like better people. It makes us easier to live with. We aren't shooting on other people and musting on other people. So, yes, I'm starting to laugh because, we're all stuck at home right now. And I was wondering if I could make a word that would make nagging sound more positive, like encourage nagging, incur nagging. I'm not sure, but I'm not part of myself that wants to, have things or believe that someone needs to do something because it's better for them. So I might label it encouraging, but it might be nagging. So again, that's something that's coming up for me. So I need to take care of that. And I can take care of that by coming down and painting and, releasing whatever it is that's going on. I don't even have to figure it all out. I can just come down and paint and just let it move through me.
Okay, so we're gonna wrapping this up real soon. We got about 5 more minutes. So if you're just joining us, this is one of our future authors, Lisa Hahnlen, that is going to share her story in the new book, Path of Awakening. This is our proof copy. She's sharing how her expressive arts is helping her in her life. But Lisa, I want you to also share a little bit about how did this writing, your story, which talks about, like you call them the childhood gifts, all the different parts of you that you felt may have held you back in some capacity. How did the writing of your story take you deeper into your own healing journey?
Yeah, it was a lot of work. It's just setting aside the time to write and really having my past experiences be condensed by doing the writing. I felt it gave me, I don't know if it was closure, but it helped me kind of encapsulate my previous experience in a way that I hadn't really done before. And when it was all done, I had my husband read it. And he said this was very enlightening, like, because he's, been living with me through through all of this experience. And what I was able to say in the story, because of going through all the parts, but obviously only having so much time to talk about each one, it maybe gave him a sped up version of what I had gone through. And also I was able to verbalize a lot of the internal struggles that I had had, that he only just saw the outside of. I mean, obviously I shared with him how I was feeling, but at different points in time, having it all put together was pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I witness people through their writings go through these healing journeys. The first draft, it's at a certain level, and then we talk about it, we go through it. I prompt questions, and then people go another, deeper level. They might change their perspective on things. So it's always interesting to observe the writers going through that deeper healing too. So Lisa, for those of you that are on right now, Lisa is one of our authors. She's also talking today, so go back and be sure to listen, about her form of expressive arts. You can probably see it in the background there. She also has a website, so if you're interested in learning more about her online classes, then go check her out. So Lisa, how did you and why did you name your business Feel Your Art?
Well, that came from my early experience of, even though I had a lot of feelings when I was a kid, there were certain ones I didn't really allow myself to have. And that kept me trapped. So, because good women don't get angry, right? So I had a lot of stuff that I needed to express. So I really want people to feel, when they're with me and I'm facilitating them in any way, that all of their emotions are allowed. And that it is safe to express all of them, because that is really where we can really come home fully to ourselves and be present to everything that's going on for us, which allows us to then show up in the world in a way that's more cohesive. Like, if we feel at home, then we can face whatever's going on in the world as well, because we're acknowledging what our experience is.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I want to thank you today, Lisa, for coming on. And for those of you that popped in here and there or on the replay, please, share a comment below, ask a question. We'll come back and look later on as well. And then when the book is released next week, be sure to go grab a copy and read more about Lisa's story and the other 6 people who have written in here as well. Lisa, the other day, the proofreader was going over all the final edits with me. And what's really amazing is, she was having a funky day. And I know a lot of you right now are going through this emotional roller coaster ride. And she said to me, after reading all these stories, that it uplifted her and inspired her. And that's really what we're here to do, is to help people awaken and lift up their vibes during any time in their life that they're going through healing. And gosh knows, we're going through a lot right now. Yeah. So Lisa, I have one last question for you. Have you created a painting yet based on what the planet's going on from your emotional perspective? Have you done one yet?
I dabble in different like I'm doing some collages. I think the theme that's been coming up for me a lot in the work that I've been doing is to look beneath. Like there's things that are hidden that we still aren't seeing. And so like that's my message, is like that there's still stuff going on. Like I think I have things figured out, or I think I know what's bothering me, or what I need to do next. And the idea that there's still some hidden things beneath is something that's just come up for me. Encourages me to tap more into my intuition, creating that space of kind of free expression and just seeing what comes out of that.
Good. Well, I look forward to seeing what you create out of all of this. So thank you again for joining us today. Thank you to those of you that stopped by and gave some hearts. So let's give Lisa some more hearts for sharing her story. Read the whole story in The Path of Awakening, coming out real soon, the beginning of May. And if you have a story that impacts the world as a positive message and you are heart-centered and want to put that out there, well, then get in touch with me. At Powerful Potential and Purpose. And you can send me an email. I've actually been getting quite a few people with their stories, condensed stories, to see if this is something they can publish. And I want to encourage everybody to do that. Not everybody's ready for a full story, as Lisa found out. So they do shortened versions, and they still get quite a bit of space to do that. And Lisa shared today how the writing process helped her see things, how her own journey in healing brought her to the expressive arts. And so if you're looking to express yourself and get those creative juices flowing, then be sure to check out Lisa's website. Go say hi to her, do one of her free online classes she's offering, and heal yourself through this journey that we're all going through right now. Lisa, thanks again for coming by today.
Thanks.
And I love having all your artwork in the background. So I'm glad you put that back there for us to see. Everybody stay well, stay healthy, and bless you all on this amazing healing journey we're all on together.